Today, Road to GH will revealing exciting details for the week of March 31st to April 4th, 2025. First, Christina had always struggled with controlling her emotions, but the anger she felt toward Ava had reached a boiling point. The betrayal, the manipulation, the chaos Ava seemed to bring into every corner of Christina's life left her seething with resentment. In a moment driven more by impulse than reason, Christina took matters into her own hands. She found Ava's car parked in a secluded area, and with trembling hands, she tampered with the brake lines, never fully grasping the gravity of what she was doing. To her, it was a way to send a message, to make Ava feel vulnerable for once. She didn't intend for anyone to get hurt. It was supposed to be a silent threat, not a fatal act. But fate had other plans. Hours later, the car was no longer under Ava's control. Unbeknownst to Christina, Rick and Elizabeth had borrowed the vehicle for a quick errand, completely unaware that it had been sabotaged. As they drove along a winding road on the outskirts of town, the brakes gave out. The car spiraled out of control, tires screeching, metal grinding against pavement before it veered off the edge and tumbled down a wooded embankment. Christina, who had been nearby, drawn by guilt and fear, witnessed the aftermath. Her body froze as emergency vehicles descended upon the scene, their sirens blaring like a cruel echo of her mistake. She was injured too, thrown to the ground when she tried to run toward the wreckage, but the physical pain was nothing compared to the emotional torment clawing at her chest. Rick lay unconscious, blood seeping from a wound on his forehead, while Elizabeth was pulled from the wreckage, barely responsive, her face bruised and pale. Christina screamed as paramedics pushed her back, pleading for a chance to make it right. But there was no undoing what had been done. She was forced to watch, powerless, as the consequences of her actions unfolded before her eyes. Later, in the sterile corridors of the hospital, Christina found herself alone in a waiting room, her hands shaking, clothes stained with dirt and blood. That's where Lucky found her, staring blankly at the wall, as if trying to disappear into it. When she finally broke the silence, her confession came out in fragments, choked by sobs and regret. She admitted everything, the sabotage, the anger, the blind hatred that had clouded her judgment. Lucky didn't speak much, knowing there were no words that could erase the damage. But his presence gave Christina a flicker of strength to face what would come next. Now, guilt clings to her like a second skin. Every beep of a heart monitor. She can't stop replaying the moment she held the wrench in her hand, thinking it would make her feel powerful, thinking it would settle the score. Instead, it shattered lives, perhaps irreparably, and left Christina drowning in a guilt that may never release her. Second, the aftermath of the crash is likely to unfold during the week of March 31st to April 4th, forcing Elizabeth, Rick, and Christina to be rushed to General Hospital in a frenzy of panic and sirens. The scene at GH will be chaotic as doctors and nurses scramble to assess the extent of their injuries. While Christina will be physically fine for the most part, the emotional toll will be immeasurable. She'll be surrounded by the sterile smell of antiseptics and the low hum of machinery. But it's the sound of Rick's strained breathing and Elizabeth's faint murmurs of pain that will echo endlessly in her mind. The show will no doubt take this opportunity to center Christina's growing sense of guilt. Every step she takes down the corridors of General Hospital will feel heavier than the last. She'll watch Elizabeth being wheeled into surgery and Rick lying in a hospital bed, unconscious and pale, and realize with sickening clarity that none of this would have happened if not for her tampering with Ava's car. Her initial desire to shake Ava, to rattle her control, has spiraled into a chain reaction of destruction that's out of her hands now. No one can undo the damage, not even Christina herself. This may be the long overdue wake-up call Christina desperately needs. In her quest for retribution, she lost sight of where the line between righteous anger and reckless vengeance truly lies. The consequences are now flesh and blood, marked in the bruises on Elizabeth's face and the deep gash above Rick's brow. No longer can she hide behind excuses or justifications. The reality is brutal. And it's staring her straight in the face with every beat of the monitors, keeping Rick and Liz tethered to life. If there's any path forward. It begins with Christina seeking professional help, not only to deal with her impulsive behavior, but to unravel the deep-rooted hatred she harbors toward Ava. That bitterness has festered into something toxic and dangerous, and unless she confronts it head-on, there's no telling what further damage she could do. She'll have to admit to herself that her fixation on Ava has consumed her, and that healing won't come from revenge, but from facing her own inner demons. Unfortunately, even if Christina begins the journey toward redemption, it will be of little comfort to Rick and Elizabeth if they're still fighting for their lives, or grappling with long-term injuries that could alter their futures. Apologies won't mend broken bones or erase trauma. Christina's guilt will be a heavy burden to bear, especially as she watches the people she once loved and hurt so deeply suffer because of her unchecked rage. Third, as the truth begins to unravel behind the scenes, Lucky finds himself standing at a painful crossroads, torn between his moral compass and his emotional ties to Christina. After hearing her confession, he carries the heavy burden of knowing that someone he cares about is responsible for a potentially criminal act with devastating consequences. His instincts as a former cop urge him to come forward, to uphold the law and ensure justice is served. Yet his heart hesitates, weighed down by memories of Christina as a vulnerable, misguided young woman now drowning in guilt. The decision isn't just about her, it's about what's right, what's fair, and what secrets should remain buried. The risk of exposure looms over Christina like a storm cloud. If the truth about her tampering with Ava's car comes to light, she could face arrest and prosecution, reckless endangerment, attempted manslaughter, or even more severe charges could be on the table if Rick and Elizabeth's injuries are deemed life-threatening. Lucky knows that any delay in reporting the truth could eventually implicate him as well, especially if someone else uncovers Christina's involvement. The clock is ticking and silence comes with a cost. Yet he also knows how deeply this would destroy her family, especially Sunny, who has already dealt with years of strife, betrayal, and loss. Ava, ever calculating and opportunistic, could gain enormous leverage if she uncovers what really happened. The moment she realizes that Christina was behind the sabotage, she won't hesitate to use it to her advantage. Not only could she press charges, but she could also manipulate the situation to settle old scores with both Christina and Sunny. Ava thrives on control, and this secret gives her all the power she needs. The consequences go beyond legal repercussions. She'll have to live with the fear that every knock at the door might be the police, that every whisper in the hallway might be the beginning of her downfall. Her guilt is already eroding her from within, but the looming threat of exposure and punishment may push her to the edge. Even as she begins to seek professional help, her path to redemption could be shattered if Ava or anyone else chooses to use the truth as a weapon. Lucky's silence, if he chooses it, won't be without consequence either. Protecting Christina might save her from prison in the short term, but it could strain his own relationships and sense of integrity. Every interaction with Rick, Elizabeth, or Sunny would carry the invisible weight of what he knows and what he's chosen to conceal. The decision he makes in this moment could determine not only Christina's future, but his own, and once that line is crossed, there may be no turning back. Fourth, Tracy is a master strategist, and her recent mention of Nina's secret relationship with Drew was anything but casual. It was a carefully placed reminder that she holds a potent card and is prepared to play it when the stakes are at their highest. For now, she appears content to let the knowledge simmer, keeping Nina on edge and allowing the weight of uncertainty to do its damage. Tracy understands that leverage is most effective not when used immediately, but when dangled just long enough to create paranoia, fear, and vulnerability. Her restraint is not a sign of hesitation, but rather precision. She's simply waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Nina, though outwardly composed, is fully aware of the threat hanging over her. The relationship with Drew was never meant to be exposed, especially not to those who would twist it for personal gain. With Tracy quietly watching and calculating, Nina's every move becomes riskier. She can't afford a single misstep, knowing that Tracy could unleash the truth at any moment, sending shockwaves through her already fragile position within the Quartermain and Corinthos circles. Whether it's used to discredit her, alienate her from Willow, or further isolate her from Sunny, the implications of this secret becoming public could be catastrophic. What makes the situation more precarious is that Tracy isn't alone in holding this information. Ned also knows, and while he often serves as the more balanced voice in the Quartermain family, he shares his mother's instinct for timing and influence. The two of them working in tandem could be formidable. They may bide their time, watching Nina squirm as she tries to keep her secrets buried, only to drop the bomb when it causes the most upheaval. Perhaps they'll wait until a crucial ELQ vote, or until Nina dares to meddle in Quartermain affairs again. Either way, the threat is very real. And Nina knows it. Tracy's silence, then, is not mercy, it's a warning. The longer Nina remains entangled in secrets and alliances that are already crumbling, the more susceptible she becomes to manipulation. If she tries to push back against the Quartermains or gains too much confidence, Tracy won't hesitate to remind her of just how quickly everything can be taken away. It's a power play in slow motion, with Tracy holding all the strings and Nina left to wonder when the floor beneath her might give out. In the end, the decision of when and how to use this leverage will come down to what Tracy and Ned want most: control over ELQ, retribution for past slights, or perhaps the satisfaction of watching Nina's carefully curated world implode. One thing is certain: the silence won't last forever, and when the strike comes, it will be calculated, cold, and impossible to undo. Fifth, meanwhile, Emma is quietly preparing to carry out an extreme plan, one driven by a mixture of boldness, frustration, and a deep desire to prove herself. Tired of being underestimated and feeling as though the adults around her are too distracted or incapable of taking real action, she decides to intervene on her own terms. But what begins as a passionate attempt to make a difference quickly escalates into something much riskier than she anticipated. Emma, blinded by her determination, plunges into a situation that could lead to serious consequences if she's caught, or worse, if someone gets hurt. As her plan starts to unfold, Gio notices something is off. Concerned for Emma's safety, he steps in, at first just to offer support, but he soon finds himself deeply entangled in the chaos she's created. Though hesitant at first, Gio is drawn to Emma's fire and sense of justice, and before long, he becomes her closest ally in the ordeal. Together, they navigate unexpected complications, cover for each other, and share secret glances filled with unspoken understanding. Their bond grows with each obstacle, and Gio begins to see a side of Emma he hadn't fully realized before: brave, vulnerable, and entirely captivating. As the tension rises, so does the emotional pull between them. Through whispered conversations, moments of panic, and the thrill of secrecy, their connection blossoms into something undeniable. One quiet evening, as the danger subsides just long enough for them to breathe, they find themselves standing close, hearts pounding, eyes locked, and words no longer necessary. Their first kiss is soft but electric, a culmination of everything unsaid. It's a tender admission that what they're feeling isn't just a fleeting moment, but the start of something real. Yet in true Port Charles fashion, no romantic spark comes without a cost. If Emma's plan is exposed, she could face disciplinary action, or worse, legal trouble. Gio, too, might be seen as complicit, and the protective figures in their lives may not be so forgiving. Their new relationship is quickly put to the test as they face judgment, suspicion, and the consequences of their reckless choices. The fallout could either drive them apart or make them stronger, depending on how tightly they hold on to one another. Regardless of what comes next, Emma and Gio have crossed a line. Their friendship has evolved into something deeper, more meaningful, and far more complicated. With young love blossoming amidst chaos and trouble lurking at every corner, their journey promises to be one filled with sweet moments, dramatic turns, and the kind of emotional growth that only Port Charles can deliver. Finally, in another unfolding storyline, Viewers will finally get a glimpse into the mysterious layers of Marco's life, revealing that the charming and well-spoken attorney has been keeping secrets about his connections in Port Charles. Beneath his polished exterior lies a history he has carefully concealed, one that could shift the dynamics of several existing relationships. It's revealed that Marco is the son of Jen Sidwell and Natalia Ramirez, two names with long and complicated ties to the city. This revelation not only deepens his roots in Port Charles, but also raises questions about why he has kept his identity hidden for so long and what he truly wants. As Marco makes his way to Windermere, the mystery around him intensifies. The Gothic estate becomes the backdrop for a series of tense and emotional moments, particularly as old alliances and new tensions begin to intersect. His arrival at Windermere is no coincidence, and there may be unfinished business connected to his parents' legacy that could pull him into the orbit of power players like Laura, Valentine, or even Nicholas if he returns. Marco's presence is destined to stir conflict, but also ignite curiosity, especially as more people begin to sense there's more to his story than meets the eye. Meanwhile, Lucas finds himself captivated by Marco's intelligence and sincerity. After everything Lucas has endured, from heartbreak to betrayal, Marco feels like a breath of fresh air and a chance at something honest and fulfilling. As they spend more time together, Lucas dares to imagine a future he thought might never come, one filled with trust, stability, and emotional connection. He begins to let his guard down, allowing hope to sleep in again as Marco seems to meet him not just with affection, but with a deeper understanding of who he is and what he's been through. However, not everyone shares Lucas's optimism. Brad, who has a long and turbulent history with Lucas, can't shake the suspicion that Marco isn't as perfect as he seems. His instincts, sharpened by past betrayals, won't let him ignore the subtle red flags. Brad struggles with jealousy. Yes, but also with a legitimate fear that Marco's secrets could eventually come between Lucas and his happiness. The more Brad observes, the more unsettled he becomes, especially as whispers of Marco's true lineage begin to circulate. Trust, once broken, is hard to repair, and Brad finds himself torn between wanting to protect Lucas and wanting to believe he's wrong. As the truth about Marco's past inches closer to the surface, all three men will be forced to confront what they truly want and what they're willing to risk to get it. Whether Marco's intentions are pure or part of a deeper game remains to be seen, but one thing is certain: the romantic entanglements in Port Charles are about to get far more complicated, and the fallout could shift the landscape for everyone involved. Stay tuned as the drama in Port Charles continues to unfold, with deeper secrets and shocking revelations on the horizon. With Marco's mysterious background slowly coming to light and his unexpected ties to powerful figures like Jen Sidwell and Natalia Ramirez, viewers can expect a ripple effect that will touch many corners of the canvas. His presence at Windermere is no accident, and as more truths about his past emerge, questions will arise about his true intentions and whether he's here for love, legacy, or something far more calculated. Meanwhile, tensions surrounding his connection with Lucas and Brad's growing suspicion will only intensify as emotions run high. As Emma and Gio navigate the consequences of their risky actions, their budding romance is set to deepen in ways neither of them anticipated. Their bond, forged through secrecy and adrenaline, may be tested by adult intervention, personal accountability, and the emotional aftermath of their decisions. At the same time, Christina is spiraling under the weight of guilt after her reckless actions nearly cost lives. Her journey toward redemption and possible legal consequences will keep viewers on edge, especially with Lucky caught in the middle, torn between justice and loyalty. And if Ava learns the truth, it could ignite an entirely new battle, putting Christina and even Sunny in a dangerous position. Meanwhile, Tracy Quartermaine is playing a long game, holding Nina's secret relationship with Drew like a ticking time bomb. Alongside Ned, she waits for the precise moment to use that leverage to her advantage, knowing it could shatter reputations and shift power within the Quartermaine family. With so many storylines converging, romantic entanglements, hidden agendas, long-buried family connections, and moral dilemmas, the next episodes promise to be packed with high stakes, emotional breakthroughs, and the kind of twists that make General Hospital so irresistibly compelling. Don't miss what comes next, because in Port Charles, no secret stays hidden forever.